Hey guys, how is everything going? This is a surprise patch. I'm a little bit late to the party with the surprise patch because I will show you in a minute why I was a little bit late to the party with the surprise patch. Firstly, thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel. Reference link in the description below. We are going to read the last patch of the night today, the last patch of the year today. Sorry, I have had very little sleep, and I'm going to show you why I've had very little sleep once I've just introduced this video. Yeah. I'm not going to read all this. We're going to go through straight into it. I've not read any of the changes yet because this was a surprise patch. I wasn't even aware it was coming today, but it came today. And we're just going to go through the details together, which means there'll be a new tier list. I was actually planning on doing a new tier list tomorrow, but it looks like I'm going to have to rejig that because obviously the nerfs and buffs. So we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. I will show you guys why I've been a little delayed getting this out and a little delayed with videos over the last couple of days at the end of the video. So make sure you go to the end of the video to see why I've been a little delayed with these notes and with these videos in general. Oh, careful of your face. Okay, cool. So let's have a look at the nerfs and buffs. We've got a few new skins. We've got a new project line. We've got the Santa skins, Daddy Braum, Santa Braum. Loads of new accessories, includes some new project stuff, some new Winter Wonderland stuff. We've got a new event. God, I feel like we've got 50 events going on at the moment. But I think the Kayle Morgana one has ended now, so it'll just be the Herb one and this. And there's a New Year project event. Oh, darling. What's wrong? Are you hungry again? Oh. No. I think he was just having a sneeze. Right. Let's have a look at champion changes. Akshan is too strong in the early game, absolutely. So he's getting a 6 base attack nerf, and his Avengerang is getting a base attack damage nerf as well, or base damage nerf. More so in the late game as well. I very much like this change. I do feel like Akshan is way too oppressive in the laning phase. 6 AD might not seem like a lot, but it is a decent amount, like a decent chunk of AD to lose in the early game. It definitely hit Xayah pretty hard last patch, for instance, so I think this is a good change to Akshan. He is too obnoxiously strong in the laning phase. He can very easily kind of dominate and just go all in super early, so I do like these changes to Akshan. Amumu. We were a bit too cautious with our previous Amumu changes. He's getting some more armor, and he's getting a... Whoa, that's not a 40 base health nerf. That is a 80 base health nerf, which is a very big base health nerf. They're also making it so that his bandage toss recharges more quickly and does more damage. I'm going to be playing some more Amumu support this patch, it looks like. I actually think this is a pretty legitimate buff for Amumu support. Also relatively decent for Amumu jungle as well because of the base armor nerf. So I think Amumu gets a bit stronger this patch, absolutely. Camille is getting a buff nerf. So she's getting more tankiness. So she's getting more health per level, which is going to give her like 140 health more at the end of the game. But her passive is getting nerfed to compensate. And that is, by the way, that right there is really, really, really big. Like 18 seconds at level 1 is like almost a double on the passive, you know, like, and that was a really key part of why Camille won certain matchups, right? This is a key part about why she won the Garen matchup. It was a key part about how she won the Darius matchup. And so these are now like massive shifts, I would say, and a huge nerf to her in general. And it's also going to mean that her jungle, which is actually come back to be pretty strong, is going to now probably be the better way to play her. I think this is too much of a nerf to her laning phase. Like, that shield is the reason why she won certain matchups. Obviously, you can kind of wait it, but 20 seconds instead of 10, essentially, is like doubling the time which you can look for trades. So when you have Garen, who gets his full combo off every 8 seconds, and Darius, who can trade much more frequently and that as well, you know, you're going to have to be a little bit more selective about when you're looking for those trades with Camille. So just be a bit careful. This is a really big nerf to her early laning phase specifically, and it definitely swings some matchups that she was really good into a little bit more into the favor of the other champion. Although I will say I still think it's very, very viable for you to play Camille lane, and you could probably still win those matchups if you play it well. You just have less room for error when you play into those Garen and Darius matchups now. I mean, this is a really good nerf. I think her riposte cooldown was on a very, very short cooldown in the early game, but it's not why she was strong in the lane. I think this affects both Fiora and Fiora lane and jungle, but I think it affects Fiora jungle more so than anything else. Because realistically, Fiora lane never really. Fiora played the lane that she never really had to get into trades where riposte was super useful every 20 seconds, right? Fiora wins lane by having a ridiculously long-range lunge and just procs Grasp of the Undying and lunge over and over again, and that makes it very difficult to trade into her because she just can do it from range, and you can't really punish her for that. But this is like a decent nerf to her early game, which was already quite strong for a champion that's supposed to be quite late game orientated. Chum the Waters is getting a cooldown increase again because people think he's too strong, so 10 seconds at all ranks. I think this is, I think Fizz is in an okay spot regardless. I do think that the Chum the Waters is on a low cooldown, for an ultimate side. He's had 2 cooldown nerfs on this ultimate now. This, especially the 90 seconds in the early game, probably puts him in a healthier spot. 60 seconds in the late game, though, when you're still building a decent amount of ability haste, is probably going to be, you're still getting regular Chum the Waters off. But I think Fizz was already relatively niche after the sort of the nerfs he had a few patches ago, and this is just boxing him a bit further into the niche category. Jarvan, apparently too strong. Who would have thought? Not me. 6 AD nerf, and they're giving a 10 damage nerf. This actually affects his Baron lane really heavily. He was a good Baron. I would say that, and I'm going to be really honest with you, he's a good Baron lane pick into certain matchups, like Darius. He's good into Kennen, for instance. This just hurts him in those matchups because he was already pretty crappy into like a lot of other matchups. This just hurts those good matchups, and so now Jarvan as a counter pick feels a little bit less good to go because he's just his laning phase is hurt a significant amount. He has apparently been flying under the radar as a strong pick, and I do think he is a strong pick. Don't get me wrong, but his jungle clear speed apparently was too good, and his laning phase was already too strong. I do think Jarvan is good. Don't get me wrong. I do think Jarvan's good, but I just think that I never really felt like he was super strong. Maybe he was super strong in like the middle level elos, or maybe he was just starting to be picked up in the elite level of play. But I didn't realize Jarvan was that strong. I always thought like he was okay and was a good counter pick, but was never really like something you would go in the Baron lane consistently. Yeah, she got screwed. Kaisa. Bonus AD ratio 5% on Icathian Rain, and her supercharge attack speed is going up by 15% in the late game. That's a pretty decent 15% extra attack speed in the late game after using your invisibility is actually really nice. And I think she needed this because she didn't feel very good. She had been nerfed pretty heavily over the last couple of patches. So I think like this is a good change to Kaisa. And I think you really do want to Kaisa is always meant to be a good late game carry. She was never meant to be this lane dominant pick. She's supposed to be someone that can be more aggressive than a Vayne, but has that same kind of carry potential. Not as obnoxious as Vayne, but that same kind of carry potential. And I think this is a good change. The 15% attack speed will definitely really help, especially in kiting and juking, assailants in the late game. How has Kayle been too strong in the early game? It's her late game that's a nightmare. So yeah, they're cutting her scaling. They aren't actually nerfing as much as I thought they would. I'll be honest with you, her early game was always turbo bad, right? This is the biggest change here. The attack speed per level is getting nerfed by 50, which is actually a pretty significant change because now all your attack speed items are going to affect her way less. And without Ginsu's, I feel like this means that you have to go that Wit's End build because you're not going to have enough attack speed now unless you go for like a Phantom Dancer, for instance. Oh, it's all right, darling. It's all right. Okay. Unless you go for like a Phantom Dancer. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced this is going to make Kayle bad. I don't think it will. Like her ultimate base damage was never the problem, right? I don't think this makes Kayle bad. Honestly, I honestly don't. I think Kayle, like, who cares about her 6 AD in the early game, and who cares about her armor per level, right? She could not trade with anyone. She lost every single trade to every single other champion in the game in the early game. You sat under your tower until you hit level 5 as a Kayle. So her early game was never the problem because you can't win trades as Kayle in the early game anyway. This just makes it harder to farm and just screws you a little bit harder mid game maybe. But I think the attack speed per level is the one that's the big shift. So you're going to have to include some more attack speed in your build if you weren't otherwise, which means probably Nash's Tooth, like Wit's End, is the play for you if you're playing a magic damage build. And you probably have to go, invest a little bit more if you're playing the AD Kayle build. But I don't think this makes Kayle bad, and I think Kayle will still be strong this patch. So I'm not going to... I got told about this Lee Sin buff a little bit before the patch came out, and I'll be honest with you, I still think he's the best jungler in the game. They're giving him a love tap of a nerf. It's a buff. It's a very tiny buff. It's a bit of extra base health regeneration per 5. So he gets 1.5 extra health per 5 seconds, which is absolutely nothing. I'm interested to read this. I mean, we're reading this for personal reasons. Stronger in high-level games, but could use a little help in low-level games. We're cautiously giving something that should help him in lower-level games, which shouldn't impact him in high-level play. He's getting a bit more health regeneration to help with his jungle clears, and his ultimate giving a bit more damage. Okay, so it's 25 attack. It's 25 damage on his dragon rage, which is really small. It's not a huge buff, and he's getting a minuscule extra amount of health regeneration. He's still getting banned in high elo, right? I ban Lee Sin as my go-to jungler, next being Kha'Zix, so he's still getting banned in high elo. But I don't think this is changing his power level in high elo. This is not what made him good. What made him good is his obnoxious amount of mobility, because of the changes to Lee Sin for Wild Rift, where his safeguard can go anywhere. I really feel that they need to rework that ability, because I know it doesn't give him a shield when he uses it, unless he uses it on himself in an area. But I just feel like you need to massively nerf that, because it's basically a free dash that gives him empowered abilities. I just feel like it needs to get nerfed. But regardless, he's still getting banned in high elo, and maybe this helps him get played in low elo. But I think the problem with him in low elo or mid-level elo is that he's just really hard to play. Like, he's just a very, very, very hard champion to get right. And so therefore, even if you buff him like this, I don't think it's going to make him any better at low elos. I think the thing about Lee Sin that makes him good is it's very user orientated. Like, a good Lee Sin player will make this champion look like the most broken thing in the game, which it can be if it's in the hands of a good Lee Sin champion. A bad Lee Sin player is going to make this guy look turbo garbage. So again, I don't think you can change Lee Sin really in any way. I think the good Lee Sin players just make use of his mobility to such an extent that it feels unfair to play against. The bad Lee Sin players don't know how to do that, so he just looks bad. But that's just my personal take. Olaf, he's getting a buff. He was already fringe good, by the way. Olaf was already like picked decent amount, but he was fringe good. Probably see him rise up in the jungle ranks a little bit. Like nearly 1 AD per level is a nice shift, and he's getting a bit of extra slow on his undertow. So especially as you level that first, for most Olafs, it's an extra little bit of slow from level 2 onwards, which is nice. Renekton is 2 bonkers, which is 100%. So they're giving him a 1 base attack damage nerf, and his Ruthless Predator is going up by 1 second at all ranks. Not going to change Renekton a massive amount. I'm going to tell you that. He's still going to be very good. I still think Renekton's going to be strong. So, and especially with Black Cleaver, you're gonna notice. Oh, I've got massive. Especially with Black Cleaver, you're going to notice those cooldown nerfs less on Renekton, right? Okay, so Senna. Yeah, I feel like Senna has gone under the radar for nerfs for quite a while. And I think this is a pretty big change. This is basically cutting your... Ooh, what have I done here? This is basically cutting your range generation by about 25% throughout the whole game. So to get to the same sort of level of range, you're going to need to have like... Well, let's say 8. If you get to 80 souls, right? You're going to have 20 less range overall. Wait, no, it's 20. Oh, wait, it's 25 to 15. Oh, my God. Oh, that's 10. So you get to 80 souls, you're going to have 40 less range overall, which would require you to get another like 50 souls equivalent, but it would be 60 souls to match. So 80 souls now, you're going to have 140 souls to match that previous range. That is a huge, huge nerf in my opinion. Huge nerf in my opinion. That is a big change. I really wish they would have compensated because they've just nerfed twice. That's a huge nerf to Senna. Like, you're losing a ridiculous amount of range now. A ridiculous amount of range. Christ. Does this make Senna not viable? That's the question. Her range was the reason you picked her, right? Christ. That is a very, very, very large change. TF. Base health stats 10. Pick a card cooldown. Are they just like are they reversing the change they did on the last patch? Interesting. Yeah, I think might make TF more playable again. That's like they've just reverted the change. But I think the ultimate nerf is still something that the ultimate nerf was the biggest part of that last set of balance changes. And so I think the ultimate nerf was the one that really kind of cut or hurt TF the hardest. Like, cutting his ultimate by that amount on range was absolutely ridiculous. And I think like the double nerf was a big whammy. So I think reverting this change is fine. I still think TF has got hurt massively from that ultimate nerf shift though. And that's the last patch of the year. So that's everything that we need to know. No item changes or anything like that. And now for this. Right. This is why I'm a little bit late. So, everyone, this is Arthur. And he is 2 days old. Aren't you, little monkey? And yeah, he didn't sleep very well last night. He's exactly like Rupert was, and just permanently fed. Aren't you? He's quite sleepy, so I'm going to put him back to sleep. There we go.